On screen, the play consists entirely of verbatim interview material, courtroom transcripts, public record, and personal testimony. All of the play's characters are real people. In Blackness, the company sings "It's So Hard to Get Along," a song of infinite sorrow. Rose, a black woman in her 50s, leads.
It's so hard to get along, my Lord. It's so
Community play readings are a way to have the opportunity to say the words, both the thoughtful and meaningful words and the violent and disturbing words that are said in the course of this play. To engage with those words helps us to better understand the event itself.
The event itself is the Greensboro Massacre, a coordinated attack on protest marchers in 1979, with aftershocks that continue to reverberate today.
When all they brought to Greensboro on November 3rd were long guns and semi-automatics, the feds...
This community reading of Emily Mann's play, Greensboro, a Requiem, was held during a weekend marking the 40th anniversary of the massacre.
The first trial opened, we already knew that we were not going to get any kind of justice.
It's still a raw subject, even in the town where the 1960 lunch counter sit-ins began, and that's home to the International Civil Rights Museum. What happened was this. On November 3rd, 1979, there was an anti-Klan protest march led by members of the Communist Workers' Party, part of a pro-union movement at a local mill. The Klan, joined by members of the American Nazi Party, opened fire, and the police were nowhere to be found. 5 people died, and many more were injured.
In 88 seconds, the Klan shot 13 people. They killed 5 of them. No Klansman was shot.
All of the people who were killed were dear friends. Sandy Lee Neely Smith was a best friend and remains that in her spirit. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was to call her mom to say that Sandy is dead.
Playwright Emily Mann talked to people on all sides of the event and used their actual words in Greensboro, a Requiem.
I just wanted to say it's one of the greatest honors of my life to have been entrusted with this story, and I want to thank all of the survivors and the community for their belief in me over all of these years of work, and I hope that giving back to the community in this way will be an act of healing. Thank you.
Emily is even a character in the play called The Interviewer.
But how did he end up working for the Greensboro police?
Here, the interviewer is talking to one of the organizers of the march, Nelson Johnson, who's describing how one of the key instigators, Eddie Dawson, worked with both the Klan and the Greensboro police.
They went to Dawson.
I see.
So you have to understand, he recruited, organized, and led the Klan, fully armed, to Morningside homes while he was working for the Greensboro police.
Wait.
This play was really an eye-opener for me and really shook me to my core, as if the police and the Klan really worked together to this depth. I mean, we've always heard about that in the black community, that you really can't trust a cop, but the depth of it, presented in a theatrical form, really took me to another place.
I was interrogated by the FBI and the Greensboro police.
Nelson Johnson, played here by Miller Luckey Jr., is central to the play. Nelson now fights for his community as a pastor and as the executive director of the beloved community center of Greensboro.
They threatened to rip my bandages off. The FBI agent whispered in my ear, "Your life ain't worth a nickel," in word.
It's just a blessing to hear somebody present, as best they can, a reasonably truthful narrative.
I think people kind of pay attention a bit more because it's a reading. They're not caught up with the special effects that might happen on stage. So when you strip all of that away, you have nothing but the words. And so when you pay attention to the words, it's history, it's a learning, you know.
You can't fight these city officials, these politicians. There ain't nothing you can do.
Some would like to just forget the Greensboro Massacre. Even in Greensboro, younger people may never have learned about the event.
I think growing up for me was this very slow unfolding of realizing that other people didn't know about this.
César Alvarez was born the year after the massacre and is named after one of the victims. They're now a composer, lyricist, playwright, and performance maker.
What's cool about this play was that it was one of the first pieces of theater I ever saw. I saw it when I was 16, and we took a road trip up to New Jersey to Princeton to see the world premiere. And at the time, it was a really surreal experience to sort of see your community animated on a stage by a bunch of strangers.
In 2018, César, now a Princeton University Arts Fellow, returned to the McCarter Theatre for a community reading of Emily Mann's play, Greensboro, a Requiem.
After the event ended, he said, "Wow, that was great. That was so moving. It would be so great if we could do this in Greensboro for the 40th commemoration."
So tonight I'm reading the role of a white supremacist, which is terrifying.
And you're proud you're a racist, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I believe in the sovereign rights of the sovereign people of the sovereign states of the Confederacy that has never surrendered. Lee the traitor surrendered, but not my Confederate government. I believe that my country is occupied, and I will fight as my...
But also feels like something that could be a learning for me. It could be a way in which I can kind of look at a corner of this trauma that I've never been able to look at. To embody the story with my community around feels like an incredible opportunity to heal.
Didn't you speak at a Klan rally in Lincolnton and encourage them to seek revenge in Greensboro?
Now I know where you're going. Look, I was very cagey. I always am, and I never tell anybody to bring guns or anything like that.
What I love about this play is that it really casts an unflinching light on the very perverted humanity of the folks who are on the other side, the Klansmen, the Nazis. I say perverted humanity because their actions are evil and harmful, and yet they're still humans. It captures that essential humanity that we have to figure our way, muddle our way through, and this play is a way of helping an audience do that.
Blah, blah, trouble with the Ku Klux Klan was coming up.
It's not edifying at all. If you just name someone a bad guy, how did he become a bad guy? Why is he a bad guy? How can he continue doing that? I mean, you cannot affect change. And deep inside me, I'm an activist, and I'm always looking at how you can make the world a better place. You can't make the world a better place unless you understand perhaps who you might call your enemy. Know your enemy. Love thine enemy. You should bring your enemies, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. You need to know the deeper workings of the other side.
The media in this country, so many of them Marxists, that schools learn.
Emily's a terrific interviewer, and she got a lot of stuff out of a lot of people. It's really it's a terrific piece of investigative work. The play actually reveals more about Dawson than the trials did. It's a positive comment about her play and a very, very negative comment about the U.S. justice system.
Emily Mann went and took the initiative to sort of make all of these interviews and investigations, and also to actually talk to the perpetrators of the Greensboro Massacre and try to understand what was the origination of this act. And for us then to take those words and those investigations and embody them on a stage and as a community, to me feels like this incredibly magical healing act. It means a lot to those of us that have lived with it always, to see it being remembered and to see it being acknowledged.
And sisters in a new community on the other side. On the other side.